So Putin just replied to Trump. Now, Trump put out this Truth Social post. As you know, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. It's like a paper tiger. He put that out, and Putin responded. And it's not good the way that Putin responded. Let me show you what I mean. So initially, Peskov came out and said Russia had no choice but to continue this war in Ukraine, dismissing this paper tiger thing and then saying we're not a paper tiger and we're a bear and that sort of thing. But then you started to see another shift. Before I talk about the shift, though, let's look at this. Timothy Milovanov. He's the former head of the Minister of the Economy in Ukraine. He said, many wonder what to make out of Trump's paper tiger rhetoric on Putin. Is this a permanent shift? Policy? No. I would agree. It seems like Trump can vacillate this way or that way. We don't know how long this will last. It's probably something to be said for immediate effect. And Milovanov says, White House says that Trump's anti-Russia blasts are a negotiating tactic, not a policy shift. And that's according to the Washington Post. Yeah, he really does kind of dig Putin. And so while it was good to hear that, let's wait to see what happens. The other day I misspoke about that and said, let's watch his actions, or let's watch his words, not his actions, when I meant exactly the opposite. Look for his actions, not his words. Okay. Now, how is Putin answering him? Belarusian dictator Lukashenko, Putin's buddy, says that a peace deal favorable to Ukraine is on the table and warns that if Kyiv refuses, Russia will seize the whole country. Well, why didn't they seize the whole country before if they could have done it? But they can't. And so this is an empty threat, but nonetheless, that's what they're doing in order to try to show that they're tough or whatever. Okay, so that's sending Lukashenko out to do his dirty work. And he says a little bit more than that, too. He says this: it's expected that the system, talking about the Orishnik, will be placed at as close as possible to the borders with Poland and Lithuania. So he's ramping it up a notch, right? He's adding some fuel to the fire to maximize pressure on NATO. Although the system is not a nuclear weapon, its mass use is compared in effectiveness to a nuclear strike, only without radioactive contamination. They have it. If they use it, it'll change everything. Either it'll turn into a surrender or a war, or like a wider war immediately. Yeah, okay. Belarus has deployed the Orishnik missiles on its territory to guarantee its security, said the country's foreign minister. So this just came out today. It's deployed. It's there. And so Putin's message here is saber rattling that I am not to be trifled with. Okay. He's also doing this. Washington Post, citing leaked documents, reported that Russia is assisting China in preparations for a potential Taiwan invasion. Well, okay, so that's bad, but it's worse than bad. Like, get into the details of it. Russia's helping prepare China to attack Taiwan, according to the Washington Post. According to the information obtained, Russia has reportedly agreed to equip and train a Chinese airborne battalion. The agreements allegedly allow Beijing to access training and technology in one of the few areas where Russia's capabilities still surpass those of the Chinese military, more experienced airborne troops. Moscow has become increasingly dependent on China for dual-use items to prop up its sanctions-hit military, so that's what they need. And now Beijing is using Russia's experience to accelerate its army's modernization program and bring its capabilities to the level of the U.S. Armed Forces. According to the documents, in October 2024, Russia agreed to sell China 37 BMD-4M light amphibious assault vehicles, 11 Sprut SD-M1 self-propelled anti-tank guns, 11 BTR MDM armored personnel carriers, and parachute systems designed to airdrop heavy loads. The total value of the contract was $584 million. Separate documents outlined training programs for Chinese paratroopers in the combat use of the weaponry and the advanced command and control systems used to direct operations by Russian specialists in Russia and later in China. Analysts emphasize that for China, Russia's airdrop expertise is most valuable, which is important in the event of an invasion of Taiwan. Think about that. That's what they're going to need. And if the invasion takes place, Moscow's supply of natural resources and its defense industry could become strategic backup for China. Think about that. Like there would be a pipeline, an oil pipeline that would be very difficult to control. Although, Ukraine's trying to do that to Russia right now, but it'd be very difficult to control China's when they're being backstopped by Russia on top of whatever China has. Okay, so that's another message. Another message, Zelensky is not a good specialist in the field. Sorry, he is a good specialist in the field he previously worked in. So this is what's the phrase? Damning with faint praise, right? He's giving him praise for being a good actor. He is a good actor, but there's a difference between playing someone and being someone. Playing someone requires talent, but handling public affairs requires experience, specific knowledge, the ability to identify and solve key problems, the ability to build and organize a team, and most importantly, the ability to take responsibility for the consequences of your decision, says President Putin. Okay, well, let's not worry about what he's said about what in that he's trying to minimize Zelensky. That's kind of the message. Here's the message from Lavrov. Okay, the Ukraine crisis is provoked by the collective West. We're not stopping. We can't stop because you guys did this to us. Listen.
Working on the basis of principles enshrined in...
This is a translation from the UN. It's on RT in English.
The UN Charter, taken in full, comprehensively, with due regard how they're interrelated.
Okay, I have to start over.
Working on the basis of principles enshrined in the UN Charter.
He's talking from principles enshrined in the UN Charter with a straight face. Like, seriously, he does this, and then while his country is invading Ukraine, they're talking about we have to uphold these principles. Well, no, you're the ones violating the principles.
In full, comprehensively, with due regard how they're interrelated, is a way of laying the groundwork for the progressive development of all states without exception, large and small. Refusing to comply with the Charter's principles is... an expression of neocolonial ambitions.
It's an expression of neocolonial or new colonial ambitions. But this whole war is colonial. What you're trying to do to Ukraine is to colonize it by might, by knocking it over and putting whoever you want to put in charge. That's what's going on. Here's another view of this. We need new world order where colonialism is not the driving force, he says. These wars were declared for colonial reasons, but he's a colonizer. Okay. There's an incredible moment as the Japanese prime minister criticizes Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia's representative is pictured ripping off her continuous translation headphones and kind of chuckling. Like, it's really bizarre to watch the behavior. Here he is. You're not going to understand it because he's speaking in Japanese, but just watch when we get to this point where she takes the headphone off and laughs. Here we go. Yeah, and that's a message as well. It's not even worth listening to you. Okay. Here's another message. Russia is almost certainly conducting an extensive interference campaign targeting the Moldovan primary elections due to take place on 28 September 2025, just this coming weekend, aiming to increase Russia's influence in the country. Mis and disinformation is being disseminated widely across multiple traditional and social media platforms and outlets including Blue Sky, Facebook, TikTok, Telegram, and X. This effort is almost certainly directed by the Russian state. Now, I saw like thousands of spam or bot networks on, I don't remember which network, I think on TikTok were taken down. We see this. Russia paid priests $1,200 to create social media channels for their churches, then using them for the dissemination of Kremlin propaganda. And this is what Ukraine was objecting to with the Russian Orthodox Church. Here's some more. The most immoral feature of the Russian election interference in elections in Moldova is the use of the most trusted institution, the church. And a little bit further, almost 90 new Telegram channels have been established across the counts in the Moldovan Orthodox parishes over the past year, according to a Reuters review of social media data. Most channels have pumped out identical content on a nearly daily basis, urging the faithful to oppose the government's pro-Western push in posts that have reached thousands of followers, the analysts found. That's part of the answer from Putin. Here, a special report from Reuters finds that Russia has recruited and paid Orthodox priests in Moldova to preach and coordinate against the country's pro-Western government. All right, now it extends beyond this. Kremlin is also trying to use Russian Foreign Intelligence Services alarmist claims to influence the vote in the final days before the election. The SVR's claims are also attempting to garner support for Kremlin-linked electoral blocs that are running on platforms that call for strengthening Moldovan neutrality. How about that? Okay, now, at the same time that all this is going on, the picture is pretty bleak in Russia. Last fall, when submitted the state budget for 2025, the Russian government promised a deficit of 14.2 billion in US dollars. In reality, the deficit will be several times higher. Currently, the deficit is almost 5 trillion, that's rubles, or 59.5 billion US dollars. By the end of the year, it could reach 95 billion US dollars. Now, when submitting the state budget for 2026, the deficit is estimated at 54.7 billion already, a prognosis 3 times worse than for 2025. So it's getting bad there, but they're going to find ways to reach into the pockets of their businesses or oligarchs or whatever else. And we find things like this. Another Russian official has been found dead in Moscow after falling out of a window. And I don't know if that's related to the budget issue, but these keep happening. So I saw this today and I went back just a little bit into my news that I've highlighted or like bookmarked. The body of Alexander Fedotov, a former chairman of St. Petersburg Committee for Transport Infrastructure Development, was discovered in the Moscow region. Russian media claimed he committed suicide. He was discovered yesterday under the windows of the Sheraton Hotel at the airport. Okay. This other guy is another executive, another suicide in Russia. Alexander Tuyin, CEO of Rostom Umatex Group, found dead in a forest in Moscow next to his car and rifle. The military contractor is the only carbon fiber manufacturer in Russia. You're only seeing his legs and maybe the little barrel of something here. Okay. Yeah. So the hits just keep coming. And they'll find ways to collect their money or find ways to shake down the money. Prime Minister Frederiksen warned that Denmark faces ongoing hybrid attacks from what she calls a cowardly enemy, while pointing to Russia as the primary security threat to Europe. So this is another way that Putin is answering. I talked about this today. Europe being violated, the truth about Russian drone and hybrid attacks on Europe. Not a lot of you watched it. I don't know if it was bad timing on my part or you didn't like the thumbnail or whatever it is. I cataloged all the major drone and airspace incursions and all these over the last couple of weeks. Like there's a lot. They're doing a lot and they're sending a message in the process. President Zelensky is losing his mind to the anti-Hungarian obsession, says the Hungarian foreign minister. Well, they found a drone incursion from Hungary into Ukraine, and they're now making this sound like it's some kind of false flag operation so that they can discredit Zelensky. And that's what he's talking about. He's now starting to see things that aren't there when Zelensky is claiming that Hungarian drones had been spotted in Ukraine's airspace. Now, let's turn our attention to Trump. Trump's actually saying the right things about Ukraine. It's really almost weird. Russia has captured very little territory in recent months, President Trump said during White House remarks, and I showed a few of these this morning. Okay. He also said, hey, Hungary, you shouldn't be married to this one pipeline. He's disappointed. And his landlocked allies resist halting Russian energy. So Orban has chosen Putin over Trump, and Trump's not going to know what exactly to do with that. But while he's doing the right or saying the right things, and again, when Zelensky was talking about, they had this really good meeting. Zelensky requested Tomahawk cruise missiles from Trump at a closed meeting. Approximate range of these missiles is 1,600 kilometers. Trump reportedly responded with understanding, but it's not yet clear whether a positive decision will be made. If they get them, that'll be a pretty significant zag, right? Because Zelensky will be able to hit things in Russia that he can't hit presently, like meaningfully pinpoint, really do that. Okay. And we see some things like this. President Donald Trump implored Turkish President Erdogan to cease purchasing oil from Russia as he pushes for a swift end to the battle between Ukraine and Russia. Representative Bacon, he's from Nebraska said Russia's economy and reliance on energy exports is its vulnerability. President Trump is right to isolate Russia economically until it withdraws from Ukraine and stops its barbaric invasion. Anyone doing business with Russia is propping up war crimes. Okay, all good. So Trump is right now on the right page as far as his rhetoric goes, but he's got other problems. So, you know, okay, let's look at this. First, let me show this. He's showing this thing of 57% of Americans approve of President Donald Trump. That's not really the case. Like here we see this. Trump isn't the most hated president of our lifetime, but don't believe Trump is the most hated president. Don't believe the propaganda. Now this is purporting to show, and I haven't been able to find the current source, but I ran it through some AI to see if there's anything wrong with it. It said it seems about right. Okay, president approval versus disapproval ratings. The further you go over to the right, the more disapproval. The higher you go, the more approval. So Trump 1 was really disapproved, right? There was a huge backlash to Trump 1. And Trump 2 is not that far behind him. And so this is like 56%. When I asked AI about this, former President Trump's current approval rating as of late September 2025 is about 43.9% approval rating, 53.3% disapproval for a net 9 points under. So this is not very far off. This is maybe 2 points off from what it is. So here's Trump. Just to give you some perspective, here's Trump 1 and 2. Here is Biden at the same time in like 8 months in. Here is George W. Bush. Here's Obama. Well, here's Clinton, Biden, Obama, George W. Bush, Reagan. Reagan was at 30% disapproval, 60% approval at this point in his presidency. So that shows you some of the differences between them. And there's a reason for that. Like he's doing some like really strange things that you would think like low-hanging fruit would be other people like, I'm a Republican. I'm pretty frustrated with him because he keeps doing things like, okay, in an insane moment, Trump says he's going to take some of the tariff money that we've made and we're going to give it to our farmers who are going to be hurt until the tariffs kick in. Taking from Paul to give to Paul, apparently. Like, why are we doing the tariffs if that's the case? Trump says he'll take some of the tariff revenue and redistribute it to farmers. Gary Kasparov's comment was glory to the United Socialist States of America. Like, that is kind of what's going on here. And then good to remember that these are all being justified as national security emergencies. What are we talking about? Trump talking about we'll be imposing a 50% tariff on all kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and associated products starting October 1st, 2025. Why? Like, so this is the kind of thing that's giving his ratings terrible, like giving his disapproval very high marks. National security tariffs on bathroom vanities. What are you doing? And then we see things like this that are, I don't think there's something that you have to worry about because I've seen people saying like, oh, they're going to swear an oath to Hitler. Same kind of thing that they did with Hitler, they're going to do to Trump, a loyalty oath personally to Trump. Okay, life is hard enough without having to do, say stuff about what could happen that isn't necessarily going to happen. Like if it happens, sure, report on it. Absolutely. But okay, so what are we talking about here? Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has ordered a rare, urgent gathering of nearly all generals and admirals in the United States Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy, and Space Force next week at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Virginia for a currently unknown reason, according to the Washington Post. Okay. Now, okay. I mean, maybe he really wants to talk to them all at the same time. It sounds a little weird. Are we taking every general and flag officer out of the Pacific right now? One U.S. official said. All of it's weird. Okay, I get that. And maybe this point is more compelling to my mind. Telling the world that you're gathering all our high-ranking military officers in one single location is really not that smart from a security perspective, but okay. But all that to say, if you're ginning up the propaganda about, and it really is propaganda, if you're ginning it up and going, this is to swear a loyalty oath to Trump and it's all fascism. Look, if it happens, if something like that happens, we'll report it, right? And then we can know and fight against it together because that should be fought against. But I don't think that's going to happen, one. And two, like, why are you trying to, I mean, are you looking for clicks or something, or what are you trying to do by doing that, by trying to ramp up the drama there? Don't do that. Life's hard enough. Okay, last little thing. Did you know that the territory of the USSR was smaller than the Tsarist Russia? So when people are saying he wants to rebuild USSR 2.0, maybe what Putin's ambitions are, Russian Empire in 1867. It sure does seem that he's after something larger than just the Donetsk and the four oblasts, right? I mean, it sure does seem like, go back to Lukashenko's point earlier here. Where is it? It says a peace deal favorable to Ukraine is on the table, and he warns that if Kyiv refuses, Russia will seize the whole country. Seems like they're interested in more than just the areas that they're currently holding. Maybe more than Ukraine, given what they're doing in Moldova. And they don't want to fight a hot war in Moldova. They just want to have a puppet government that's loyal to Russia. All right, tell me what you think about what I was saying here. Am I off? I mean, I think Putin is speaking, but he's not speaking directly. He's speaking indirectly. Tell me what you thought about that. Shout out to Nick Weber, a graduate student, YouTube member. And thank you for your time, folks. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.